Phoenix area residents are missing tonight after a local camping trip in the Estrella Mountains.
Despite the efforts of the Arizona County Rescue, officials continue to scour the area by ground and in the air.
Look, they're coming this way.
Jesus, that's a UFO.
That is not a UFO. Those are flares.
It is intended for the entertainment and instruction of broad-minded adults only, and should not be played to or sold to minors under any circumstances whatsoever. Thank you.
Broadcasting from the floating pie pan in the sky at Groom Lake Analog Recordings. Welcome to TarantulasDreamTV. Now here's your host, Samba.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to TarantulasDreamTV. I am your Chode Ghost.
Samba.
Oh, hell yeah. Back on the air, baby. Flying high again, back in the saddle. Phone number for the show is 520-704-7820 at 9:30, opening up the phone lines for everybody for open lines. Tonight, we're talking the Phoenix Lights, the 24th anniversary of the one of the most famous, most widely seen UFO events in recent memory. And it happened in our own little backyard here in Arizona. Not quite Tucson. It would be cool if it was a Tucson thing, but it's a Phoenix thing, so... you can't argue with that. But yes, welcome to the show, everybody. Again, this is Tarantulas Dream TV. I am your host,
Samba.
your Chode Ghost over here as Bourbon Jim. Hello, Bourbon Jim. Nice to see you in the chat. As you've seen, the Chode Ghost. I don't know. Last week I was the ghost with the toast ghost. Tonight it's the Chode Ghost. So we're going to go with that. But anyway, before we get into some of this delicious night meat over here, let's read a couple headlines over here as it's popping off here in the world, not in the best way possible. Now, before I want to get into a couple of these headlines, I just want to say that my heart does go out to Atlanta right now and the Asian community across the U.S. and the world. We really need to watch out for our Asian communities, our Pacific Islanders here, as hate crimes against them have been skyrocketing, and it's awful. It's honestly awful. So anyway, if you go to my profile, I have a GoFundMe link set up in my profile. It's going to take you to the Support the AAPI Community Fund, which is the Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders fund over here. It's a verified GoFundMe where they essentially collected all the verified organizations and is raising money for all of them. They have a $2 million goal. They've already raised roughly about $1.5 million. And if you go to the GoFundMe, they also have a link to a page that'll tell you all the organizations that they verified that the money's going to go to. So please check out that link and consider donating, as it's just honestly awful what's going on with a lot of these hate crimes and stuff. But anyways, let's get to the headlines. First headline of the night comes from CNBC.com. Man wanted by police arrested near residence of Vice President Kamala Harris. Gun and ammo found in car. Now, I just read this headline probably about an hour ago, so this is a brand spanking new news to me. Now, a Texas man wanted by the police was stopped by the U.S. Secret Service and arrested Wednesday afternoon near the Washington residence of Vice President Kamala Harris, authorities said. Police found a rifle, a large amount of ammunition, and several gun clips in a car belonging to the man, 31-year-old Paul Murray of San Antonio, after he told them that it was parked in a garage several miles away near the Washington Convention Center, according to NBC4. Also found in that black Chevy Impala was what police called a large-capacity ammunition feeding device. A police report specified that Murray was in possession of an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle, 113 rounds of unregistered ammunition, and 5 30-round magazines. Murray was stopped by Secret Service officers officers at around noon in the northwest section of Washington on Massachusetts Avenue, just outside the Naval Observatory, which contains Harris's residence. Police said they arrested Murray in response to an intelligence bulletin that originated from Texas. So yeah, not great. Very bad news. I mean, he was arrested. That's great, but we're in March and we had a potential insurrection in January, and now we're having maybe even attempts at trying to assassinate vice presidents. I don't know. Very, very disconcerting news over there. But this next bit of news is a little more positive. I had to balance it out. We have some negative news, have some positive news. This headline comes from CBSNews.com. First baby in U.S. born with antibodies against COVID-19 after mom receives dose of Moderna vaccine while pregnant. At 36 weeks pregnant, a South Florida frontline healthcare worker received her first shot of the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine. She gave birth 3 weeks later to a healthy baby girl with COVID-19 antibodies. Doctors believe the newborn marks the first known case of a baby born with coronavirus antibodies in the U.S., which may offer her some protection against the virus. Dr. Paul Giblert and Dr. Chad Rudnick presented their findings in a preprint study, meaning that it has not been peer-reviewed. They found that the antibodies were detected at the time of delivery after analyzing blood from the baby's umbilical cord taken immediately after birth and before placenta delivery. We have demonstrated that SARS-CoV-2 antibodies are detectable in a newborn's cord blood sample after only a single dose of the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine. Thus, there is potential for protection and infection risk reduction from SARS-CoV-2 with maternal vaccination. The doctors emphasize, however, that more research is needed to verify the safety and efficacy of the coronavirus vaccines during pregnancy. So, good news. It needs to be peer-reviewed, but that's fantastic for people if they're able to get vaccinated and they happen to be pregnant, that potentially they'll be passing on some antibodies to the little baby. So, we won't have any little sick little babies running around over here. So let me check the chat real quick before we get into this delicious night meat over here. Bourbon Jim, again, I said hello. Phoenix sucks. Yes, you know it. Bourbon Jim, you freaking know Phoenix sucks. And 168 RPM, hello, 168 RPM. Phoenix sucks, you know what's up, Jimbo. Yes, everyone in the chat now, and hopefully people who watch this rebroadcast later all know my feeling. 168 RPM, your feeling. I'm speaking right to the camera on this one. And Jimbo, your feeling. Phoenix freaking sucks. So it sucks that they got the Phoenix lights, but maybe someday we'll have the Tucson lights or something. But anyway, let's get into this delicious, succulent, juicy, rare, melt in your mouth. It's like Kobe beef, or it's just more fat than beef. It just melts in your mouth. Meat of the night over here. Here we go. Let's get into that night meat. So yes, like I said at the beginning of the show, it is the 24th anniversary of one of the most famous, widely cited unidentified flying object UFO sightings in the U.S., the Phoenix Lights. This happened on March 13th, 1997. So yes, 24 years ago. It seems just like yesterday that this was happening. Now this comes from wikipedia.org. If you don't know what the Phoenix Lights were or what the event was, the Phoenix Lights, sometimes called the Lights over Phoenix, were a series of widely cited unidentified flying objects or UFOs observed in the skies over the U.S. states of Arizona, Nevada, and the Mexican state of Sonora on March 13th, 1997. Residents across southern Arizona, more specifically Phoenix to Tucson, saw two distinct phenomena: a mysterious, silent, and very large craft traveling across Nevada, Arizona, and even Mexico, and a series of lights that appeared to hover over the greater Phoenix area. The second occurrence concerning the hovering lights is seen as the more widely known event, as footage and media coverage has been circulating online since the incident. Now, the Phoenix Lights event is one of the most widely seen UFO UAP events in recent history, fairly well documented and covered by the media. So I feel like most people, especially living in Arizona, have a pretty firm grasp on what the Phoenix Lights are, or at least the general idea of it. But that kind of gives you a little bit of a background on there. Now, the clip at the beginning of the show for the intro was actually taken from a movie called The Phoenix Incident, I believe. I saw it at a UFO conference I went to a number of years ago. They kind of just, it was like a surprise reveal that they're like, hey, we have this movie, we're going to play it for you. It's called The Phoenix Incident. and you're supposed to let us know if you like it or not, because we're trying to get distribution for it. So that's where that clip comes from. I thought it'd be just kind of a fun intro, as it's like a dramatized telling of what happened with the Phoenix Lights, and the movie's actually pretty decent. It's like a fan footage movie. But so if you have any interest in that, check out the Phoenix Incident. I believe it's from 2015, so fairly recently, 6 years. But the first little bit I want to get into with the Phoenix Lights, the first little juicy bit is details on the craft, the actual craft, as that's something that's a little less widely known as part of the Phoenix Lights incident. Now, details of the craft are wide-ranging and sort of sparse, with some witnesses describing it being roughly the size of a passenger airliner, while one witness claimed it to be closer to being about 5 football fields wide, which is really big. Around 6:55 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, a witness in Henderson, Nevada claimed to have seen a large craft traveling towards the southeast. He describes the craft as the size of a Boeing 747 and sounded like a rushing wind. The craft contained 6 lights on its edge. After that, a police officer in Paulden, Arizona is the next to verify the existence of a traveling craft. At roughly 8 p.m., the police officer describes seeing a cluster of reddish-orange lights in the sky, with 4 lights together and another 5th light trailing. The police officer apparently rushed home to witness the lights through binoculars, but no further details have emerged of what the witness saw after returning home. And I really wish there was more follow-up to that, what this police officer saw looking through binoculars, as that would really shed some light on what he saw. Now this is the point where the sightings started to get a little more interesting. Around Prescott and Prescott Valley, callers to MUFON, or the Mutual UFO Network, which is an all-volunteer-run agency that tracks UFO sightings across the world, as well as the UFO Reporting Center, reported seeing a craft around 8:17 p.m., detailing that the object definitely appeared to be solid, as it blocked out much of the starry sky as it passed over, as well as claiming, "We don't have anything that big. It was totally silent. I've never seen anything even close to the colors from the exhaust that propelled that thing. It was as big as downtown Prescott and completely blocked out the stars." Now, what I want to do is play you a little clip from a classic episode of Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell, where he talks with Peter Davenport, who runs the UFO Reporting Center, and he kind of details a lot of what he was hearing from these phone calls. Apparently, they were just flooded with a ton of phone calls the night of March 13th. So this is a clip from that episode.
Peter Davenport at Seattle's UFO Reporting Center, a place that gathers reports from all of you on what's going on out there. And what's going on out there tonight includes some rather strange occurrences in Arizona. Here is Peter Davenport. Peter.
Good evening, Art.
Hi. What in the world is going on?
Well, I'm not sure myself, but it's been a very busy night in the skies above Arizona tonight. Just about 3 hours ago, we started taking calls nose to tail from all over Arizona. The first call came in from a retired police officer who lives in Paulden, Arizona. That's, I guess, about 150 or 200 miles straight north of Phoenix, north of Prescott, Arizona.
Right.
He was out with his family driving. They saw a cluster of lights. It looked like 4 or 5, maybe 6 of them in a large cluster, followed by a single lone light behind them, moving from northwest to southeast approximately. That was the first of what turned out to be many calls. I've taken about 18 calls tonight from Arizona. Those objects were seen over Paulden. A minute later, they were seen over Prescott, Arizona.
A minute later.
That's, it's got to be at least 50, maybe more like 100 miles between Paulden and Prescott, Arizona. 2 or 3 minutes later, they were seen all over Phoenix, Arizona, over Glendale, over Tempe, and literally the calls were coming in on top of each other.
Listen, I can tell you it's true because I sat down here at the board just before the program, began to answer a few calls, and the Arizona calls were frantic. Art, you should see what's going on down here.
Yeah.
So what are people saying? What is the best description of these objects so far?
Yeah, there have been multiple descriptions, but the people up in northern Arizona saw lights that were distinctly red. By the time they'd gotten down to Phoenix, they were white, the color of stars, bluish white, people described. But excuse me. I'm suffering from a cold here tonight. But
So are most of the people I know.
Ruh-roh. Suffering from a cold, eh? Ooh.
it is still not clear to me whether we're dealing with one extremely large object or whether, in point of fact, there were 5 objects. I think the best report, one of the best we took from Phoenix, was from an amateur astronomer who was looking at these objects. He apparently has very good vision. He was able to discern that each one of the 5 lights that he was looking at itself individually was made up of 2 lights, 2 faint lights. It looks to me as though we are dealing with a fleet of objects. He reported, or another observer reported, that when one turned, they all turned together, as if by the same command. Now, I don't know if that's changing orientation of lights on a single large object or what. We rarely really know what we're dealing with here, but there's no doubt but what there was a dramatic sighting over Arizona.
All right, did anybody take out a camera?
One person that we talked to went for his camcorder, and by the time he got back a minute later, everything was gone.
Yeah.
Most people did not see these things for more than 2 or 3 minutes. One party said he estimated that it was 10 minutes that he'd been watching it, but he wasn't sure. That's really not enough time to go dig out the old camcorder from your steamer trunk. And
I know it.
But
There you go. That's a little clip from classic episode of Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell, talking to Peter Davenport about just all the phone calls they were getting the night of the Phoenix Lights incident. Now, the next clip I want to play is from the next day on Coast to Coast. Now, this one's a little bit shorter. It's about a minute and a half. Sorry if the last clip was a little bit long. There's a lot of information to glean from that phone call. Now, this is also from, I believe, Peter Davenport, but this is actually a phone conversation he had with somebody who actually worked at the military base up in Phoenix, that apparently they had worked up there, and that there was actually almost a collision with one of the objects flying around the night of March 13th. So that's where this call comes from.
It's about 3 minutes and 10 seconds. It comes out of Luke Air Force Base within hours of the event over Phoenix. Here we go. Let me start the tape and I'll put a timer on. For the record, it's 03:20 hours on Friday, the 14th of March, 97. I'm talking with a gentleman who's just calling from Phoenix. Okay, sir, go ahead.
That's correct. The Luke Air Force Base is actually in a lift field. I got off shift about 30 minutes ago. At 8:15, the ready alert at Luke Air Force Base, which is the 2 F-15s that we keep on ready alert. They're part of the Air Force One and Air Force Two protection group. Protect them when they come west of the Rocky Run over the president or any dignitaries on board. They were launched because all hell broke loose, basically. Currently, we got a call from Prescott Valley Airport, a small airport northwest, and reporting an object that had a near miss with a small Cessna aircraft. The call came up once regular, approximately 8:32, from my understanding, that they encountered something over the sky, over Phoenix, Arizona, over the area of 7th Avenue and Indian School Road. They don't know what it was. The description that one of the pilots stated that they had a visual on it, they've got gun camera film of it, they have no radar tape of it. It scared the hell out of them. I've never seen this I'm talking about. Yes, man pilot of this particular flight. He'll never talk. He's a real professional. Never seen this man. I've never seen this man scared.
There you go. So there's another phone call with someone who worked at Luke Air Force Base saying that there was a reported almost collision with a small Cessna aircraft around Prescott, and the person reporting the almost crash was scared out of their mind. That they were freaked out. They had never been seen scared before. So yes, there was definitely something flying around up there. Regardless of what the military says, there was something kind of goofing around over there. Now, this next little bit of information comes from MUFON.com, the official website. John Kaiser was standing outside with his wife and sons in Prescott Valley when they noticed a cluster of lights to the northwest of their position. The lights formed a triangular pattern, but all of them appeared to be red, except the light at the nose of the object, which was distinctly white. The object or objects, which has been observed for approximately 2 to 3 minutes with binoculars, then passed directly overhead the observers. They were seen to bank to the right, and then they disappeared in the night sky to the southeast of Prescott Valley. The altitude cannot be determined, however, it was fairly low and made no sound whatsoever. Now, the National UFO Reporting Center also received the following report from the Prescott area. While doing astrophotography, I observed 5 yellow lights in a V formation moving slowly from the northwest across the sky to the northeast, and then turn almost due south and continue until out of sight. The point of the V was in the direction of movement. The first 3 lights were in a fairly tight V, while 2 of the lights were further back along the lines of the V's legs. During the northwest-northeast transit, one of the trailing lights moved up and joined the 3 and then dropped back to the trailing position. I estimated the 3-light V to cover about 0.05 degrees of sky and the whole group of 5 lights to cover about 1 degree of sky. So yes, many sightings of a V-shaped object traveling across Arizona. So the evidence is just piling up over here. Now, the first Phoenix area sightings, because these are all mostly based in Prescott and the surrounding area. The first Phoenix area sightings came from Tim Lee and his wife Bobby, his son Hal, and his grandson Damian Turnage, who first saw the lights when they were above Prescott Valley, about 65 miles, 100 kilometers away from them. At first, they appeared to them as 5 separate and distinct lights in an arc shape, like they were on top of a balloon, but they soon realized the lights appeared to be moving towards them. Over the next 10 or so minutes, they appeared to be coming closer, and the distance between the lights increased, and they took on the shape of an upside-down V. Eventually, when the lights appeared to be a couple of miles away, the witnesses could make out a shape that looked like a 60-degree carpenter square with the 5 lights set into it, with one at the front and 2 on each side. Soon, the object with the embedded lights appeared to be coming right down the street where they lived, about 100 to 150 feet or 30 to 45 meters above them, traveling so slowly it appeared to hover and was silent. The object then seemed to pass over their heads and went through a V opening in the peaks of the mountain towards Squaw Peak Mountain and toward the direction of Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport. Now, I do have a clip of the Lee family from a local news broadcast kind of describing what they saw, and this sighting kind of seems like it really rocked them a little bit. The kids seemed like they were excited about it, but the father over here, what was his name, Bobby? Was that his father? Or Tim and his wife Bobby? They seemed to be pretty confused about what they saw. So this is a little clip of the Lee family describing what they saw on that night.
It was a giant V, all right? And the right side of the V went over us. The left side was like a couple blocks over it.
I just didn't know what to do. You know, it was just like, my God, how big is this thing? It didn't seem threatening, but because when it was right overhead and we couldn't hear a sound, it was like you're just awestruck.
Jim Delatoso has been researching UFOs for 20 years. Right now, he's in the middle of putting together a virtual reality model of what happened that night. He's talked to hundreds of witnesses about the night of March 13th, including the Lees.
He thinks that he said if he had a tennis ball, he could have hit it. He could have thrown a tennis ball at it. It was that close.
It was very close. He just could have nailed it.
I consider Tim Lee and his family to be...
That's a good boy. I like that kid. He just seems like he's a fun little kid, you know.
Data that they've given us because they were so close that they could look up and, as they said, almost touch it.
The last light went right over my wife and I, and there was no light on the ground. But I could see up inside that it was almost like a recess, and it had fluorescent like light inside, like a gas light of some kind.
You could see right through the middle of it, but it was like looking through two-way glass, like through a mirage that you see on the highway or something, or just when it's real hot. Right there you can see through, but there's no light coming back or anything like that. It was just really weird.
This is the first time in the series of reports of that night that someone said that they looked up and saw a structured object.
As it went over, it went straight like through this V right there, over that guy's house.
It took about 15 minutes to get from when we first saw it all the way till we couldn't saw it.
No one knows for sure what happened that night in the skies over Arizona in March, but thousands of people saw something. It's a night the Lees will never forget.
We just re-experience it every time we tell it. You know, it's like it was just yesterday. You know, we've just never seen anything like it.
I was always a very polite skeptic. I would never tell someone, if they told me they saw something, I would never say, you're a liar or anything like that, because I don't know. But now I don't know what to think, because this is impossible.
There you go. That was the Lee family describing what they saw on March 13th. Apparently the craft was so low flying and completely silent that the young little boy over there. I believe it was their son. Maybe it might have been the grandson, Damian Turnage. I think it might have been Damian. He could throw like a baseball or a tennis ball at it and hit it. Having said that, I just looked at the chat right now. Hello, Blob Dordo. Thank you for tuning in. That kid can't throw a tennis ball. How do you know, Bob? He looks like an all-American boy. He just looks like he can fire off a tennis ball every now and then. I don't know. You challenge him to a tennis ball throwing contest. He's probably much older. He's much older now. Maybe he's Bob size. I don't know. Maybe you guys can have a tennis ball throwing competition. Anyway, so the last little bit of information I want to get into here before we go on the little break was cement truck driver Phil Grenier of Phoenix was busy working when he witnessed the lights and claimed, "I'll never be the same." Before this, if anybody had told me they saw a UFO, I would have said, yeah, and I believe in the Tooth Fairy. Now I've got a whole new view, and I may be just a dumb truck driver, but I've seen something that don't belong here. He claims the lights hovered in the area for roughly 2 hours. So we're going to take a little break here over on Tarantula's Dream TV. It's about the bottom of the hour, and when we come back, it'll be open lines. So if you have any questions or comments for Old Samba over here, phone number for the show is 520-704-7820. But I do want to play you a little Spumoni video here. It's what you're thinking about with Spumoni. I played this last week. We'll have a new video next week as the calls are coming in, and he just didn't have time to answer a new one. So this is the one from last week talking about a brand new conspiracy out there. So for all you soup lovers, please perk up your ears. This applies to you. But this is what you're thinking about with Spumoni.
Hello, my cosmic cashews. Spumoni here, cruising around time and space, ready to answer your questions on anything. And I mean anything. Tonight's question comes from Big Jim Gunderson. He says,
hello? Yes, hi. Spumoni's line, right? Yeah, anyway. Spumoni, I just had a quick question. I know you're talking about QAnon, but I was curious if you had heard of StuAnon. It's a conspiracy where big government is hiding microchips in your stew, in your soup. So like your beef stew, your pho, I don't know how you pronounce it. Your chicken noodles, your minestrones, like that, they're tracking you through the soup. I was curious if you knew anything about that. I heard the only safe soup was clam chowder, so I think you should be able to stick with the chowders. But yeah, StuAnon, please answer my question. I want to know. I'm hungry. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you for that question, Big Jim. I got together with a few of my fellow Barnacle Nebula residents, and after conferring with the Galactic Federation, we all agreed that StuAnon is a massive threat to the global public at large and should be dealt with immediately. I will send forth 3 soup troops who will designate which soups are safe and which soups have massive microchip levels and should be launched into the farthest reaches of Alpha Centauri. Let's let those reptilians deal with it. I am sorry to say that clam chowder is #1 in microchips, so you'll have to stick with kipper snaps and a light brine for all your soup needs. Good luck with your stew dilemma.
There you go. That was what you're thinking about with old Spumoni over here on Tarantula's Dream TV, answering a question about the hottest new soup conspiracy on the block, StuAnon, or for the out there, SouPanon. But anyway, StuAnon. So there you go. We'll have a new question next week. So if you saw that last week, I'm terribly sorry. But anyways, it's the bottom of the hour. It's open lines over here on Tarantula's Dream TV. Phone number for the show is 520-704-7820. If you'd like to call in and ask Samba a question over here, if you'd like to talk about tennis balls or something, Blob Dordo, I'd own that kid. Well, we'll have to see about that. I'll find the Lees, and maybe we'll have to set up like a pitching competition or something. I don't know. But at any rate, so let's get back into some of this Phoenix Lights, 24 years of the Phoenix Lights over here on Tarantula's Dream TV. So the more widely known and documented phenomena of the Phoenix Lights event is the hovering lights above Phoenix, hence the Phoenix Lights. Now, the massive amount of reports from eyewitnesses as well as the varying sightings has made describing exactly what was being seen so difficult. Now, this is from MysteriousUniverse.org. Ufologist Peter B. Davenport has said witnesses were reporting such markedly different objects and events that night that it was difficult for investigators to understand what was taking place. Some witnesses reported 5 lights, others 7, or even more. Some reported that the lights were distinctly orange or red, whereas others reported distinctly white or yellow lights. Many reported the lights were moving across the sky at seemingly high speed, whereas others reported that they moved at a slow or angular velocity, or they even hovered for several minutes. Now, around 10 p.m., several lights began to appear over Phoenix near South Mountain. Now, this video clip I'm going to play you is one of the cleanest videos of the lights that I found, and it shows them beginning to appear, form a straight formation with each other, or relatively straight, and then slowly blinking out one by one. So I'm going to play you kind of a little bridge version of this video, as it's fairly long over here. But yeah, this is probably the cleanest one of the videos I could find.
What I'm looking at here is a light on South Mountain. You can see this light flickering over our mountain over here. We're looking at a light that's now appeared again. It's come out in a different place. Definitely far away, South Mountain. There's two of them. Here, we finally hit pay dirt. Now we've got two of them in the sky on South Mountain. South Mountain. Figure this one out. There's a double. There's a third one. Hey, Sue? All right, you tell me what it is. Oh, what do we got? Hey, Sue!
He just wants his wife, Sue, to take a look at the freaking lights.
Take a look at this.
Oh my God.
Oh. I hit pay dirt. Finally.
That's all he was waiting for in his life, to see a UFO, and he hit pay dirt. He saw it. There you go. So that's one of the clearest videos of the Phoenix lights that I was able to find, but you can find plenty of other videos online, still on YouTube, as it hasn't been taken down or anything. It's not really conspiracy related, so there's a lot of good videos of these of lights over Phoenix, so please check that out if you'd like to see kind of different angles of the Phoenix lights. Now this is MUFON.com again. I'm continuing that article. UFO advocates claim that these images or these videos show that the lights were some form of running light or other aircraft illumination along the leading edge of a large craft, estimated to be as large as a mile or 1.6 kilometers in diameter, however, or hovering over the city of Phoenix. Other similar sequences reportedly taken over a half-hour period show differing numbers of lights in a V or arrowhead array. Thousands of witnesses throughout Arizona also reported a silent mile-wide V or boomerang-shaped craft with varying numbers of huge orbs. A significant number of witnesses reported that the craft was silently gliding directly overhead at low altitude. The first-hand witnesses consistently reported that the lights appeared as canisters of swimming light, while the underbelly of what they claimed the craft was undulating like looking through water. So very interesting, all these kind of reports of these craft looking sort of like weirdly distorted underneath, like water. I don't know. It's very interesting. Now, some of the military explanations of the Phoenix lights, and there's a handful of them. Now, in Tucson and Phoenix, there are two different military bases. There's Davis-Monthan and Luke Air Force Base. Now, some at Davis-Monthan have claimed that the first incident, the one involving most of the sightings of the craft, seems to have stemmed from a secret pilot training program, Operation Snowbird. Excuse me. Now, this is from scientificmystery.com. What people describe as a large flying triangle could be A-10 jets flying under visual flight rules, i.e. the flights had no need for them to check in with airports along the route. As the jets were flying in formation mode, they did not have on their familiar blinking collision lights, but instead their formation lights, which looked like landing lights, thus people witnessing the objects flying at lower altitudes. These jets were moving with respect to each other, hence together, they could have appeared to people as a single huge solid object. These A-10s flew over the Phoenix area to Tucson, which landed at Davis-Monthan at about 2045 Mountain Standard Time. Now, however, the revelation of Operation Snowbird did not come for several months, roughly about 4 to 5 after the Phoenix Lights incident. So it took kind of almost half a year for the military to really say anything about the Phoenix Lights, despite the fact that the media was kind of blowing up this incident. They just kind of took forever to even reveal anything. Now, this comes from UFOchronicles.com. It comes from an interview with one Captain Drew Sullivan of the Maryland Air National Guard, explaining that the light or the craft formation was part of Operation Snowbird. He says Snowbird is an operation run during the winter when they take ANG or Air National Guard units located in the northern U.S. When it snows and the winter gets bad, they fly their units out there for a couple of weeks and train during the winter because the weather for flying is so good. Now, according to Davis-Monthan, no operations were scheduled that evening, and no craft were scheduled to be in the air as well. Captain Sullivan chalks that up to poor communication across different military branches and military bases. He said apparently when the military in Phoenix were first approached, they looked at their flight logs, which were kept in 2 separate categories called resident and visiting logs. These logs chart all of the incoming or outgoing air traffic. When the first injuries or inquiries of this went out, Davis-Monthan didn't check the visual flight logs. The public affairs office down there called the people at operations who kept the flight logs, and they said, "We don't have anything for that day." After several months, Captain Eileen Benz was told by someone, and I can't remember who, that there was a project called Snowbird, which was on Air National Guard OP. Beans didn't have any information on Snowbird because Arizona units don't participate in it. That's what he says. Now, however, this explanation still seems, to me anyway, a little fishy. If the Maryland Air National Guard conducted this operation, then they deliberately withheld information from the public after the massive reports of the craft and the lights that would have hopefully helped quell some of the murmur surrounding the event. The operation was a simple training exercise, yet news of the exercise did not come forward until many months later, hurting the credibility, I believe, of the military. It kind of seems like a cover-up. Now, the more likely explanation, all things considered, if you don't believe the military, seems that the potential of the craft being secret military, some sort of black ops kind of craft. Now, it's rumored that the craft was either a TR-6 Telos craft or the TR-3B, both highly classified rumored craft used for surveillance. And what I'm going to do is, while I talk about this craft, I'm going to put on a little slideshow here of the kind of crafts of both these crafts, because they're very interesting looking vehicles over here. Now, this is some of the rumored information regarding the TR-6 Telos aircraft. The TR-6 Telos, which stands for Trans-Atmospheric Electrogravitic Low Observability Surveillance Platform, is designed for use at a trans-atmospheric low observable reconnaissance platform with global reach and a long loiter time over targets. Employing active electromagnetic, electronic, and visual camouflage, it is able to penetrate all currently known defense systems from transorbital height. The TR-6 utilizes 5 electrogravitic generators for propulsion and is considered a VTOL craft not needing a runway. The landing gear is strictly for maneuvering while on the ground. The wings fold, which is pretty wild, for hangar storage. Currently, there are only a handful of hangars in the world that can accept the TR-6, with most of them in the U.S. The entire airframe acts as a multi-band communications relay capable of directly interfacing with all current U.S. military satellite networks. The skin employs active visual camouflage using a star field lighting pattern, along with other active stealth techniques. The Telos platform is also capable of operating in space, as well as docking with military space stations via a ventral docking hatch. Now, again, this is just a rumored craft. There's no evidence that this craft exists. In fact, the V-shaped craft that you're seeing in the slideshow is, I guess they're both kind of V-shaped, but the one that's the longer image is the rumored TR-6. Now, I do have a video that someone put together that kind of also explains the craft a little bit, and you can kind of make your own decision on whether or not you believe this craft even exists, and if it could be the explanation for why so many people saw such a large V-shaped craft on the night of March 13th.
From this image, we can see that TELOS stands for Trans-Atmospheric Electrogravitic Low Observability Surveillance Platform. In plain English, that suggests that this aircraft can operate both within and outside the Earth's atmosphere. This VTOL aircraft is said to have an electrogravitic propulsion system consisting of 5 units, although eyewitnesses have reported 7 in some reports. Obviously, this would depend on how many are actually powered on during each sighting. Low observability simply means that it's hard to spot because it has an advanced and sophisticated camouflage system that helps it blend with the night sky. And it is apparently designed as a surveillance platform, or spy aircraft if you like. The image suggests that the 2 wings can be folded, reducing the dorsal view width to 256 feet, and shows the comparable size of a B-2 Spirit bomber. The B-2 Spirit bomber has a wingspan of about 170 feet, or 52 meters, and a 747 jumbo jet has a wingspan of 224 feet. The ventral view in the image shows the width to be 519 feet. So even with the wings folded, there are not many hangars in the USA that could accommodate an aircraft of this size. Another section in the picture shows the aircraft with the star field camouflage active, illustrating how it partly blends into the night sky. At the top of the illustration is a side view, again with the B-2 Spirit bomber for comparison, with a length shown of 219 feet.
There you go. So that was a little clip of a video that I found online that it's kind of tries to explain this TR-6 aircraft. And honestly, the most kind of exciting and kind of mind-blowing part of this craft, if it's real, is just its size. It's massive. This craft is absolutely massive. Honestly, seeing this thing in real life would probably scare the crap out of me. It's crazy if this craft actually exists. Of course, again, it's a rumored craft, a rumored technology, and there's no physical evidence or photographic evidence of its existence. So we may never know if it exists. And Blob Dordo, I saw in the chat over here that you said, I have seen something similar over the Catalina Mountains about 10 years ago or so. I think we've discussed this before. I believe I remember you telling me about this. You may want to refresh my memory if you'd like to call in, or if you just want to put it in the chat for everyone else to see. If you have a particular story you want to share about that craft, or we can just talk privately as well. But I do kind of remember you sort of telling me about that. But anyway, so I'm going to turn this little slideshow off over here. But yes, that's one of the rumored craft, one of the rumored kind of explanations for the Phoenix Slice is potentially this craft is just sort of secret government technology. They were testing it over populated areas and people saw it. So again, I don't know. It's very interesting if true, but we may never know. Now, the military, specifically Luke Air Force Base, has taken responsibility for the lights, claiming they were flares. Now, this is also from MUFON. The U.S. Air Force explained the second event, or the flare event, as slow-falling, low-burning LUU-2B over B illumination flares dropped by a flight of 4 810 Warthog aircraft on a training exercise at the Barry Goldwater Range at Luke Air Force Base. According to this explanation, the flares would have been visible in Phoenix and appeared to hover due to rising heat from the burning flares, creating a balloon effect on their parachutes, which slowed the descent. The lights then appeared to wink out as they fell behind the Sierra Estrella, a mountain range to the southwest of Phoenix. Now, a Maryland Air National Guard pilot, Lieutenant Colonel Ed James, responding to a March 2007 media query, confirmed that he had flown one of the aircraft in the formation that dropped flares on the night in question. The squadron to which he belonged was in fact at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in a training exercise at the time, and flew training sorties to the Barry Goldwater Range on the night in question, according to the Maryland Air National Guard. A history of the Maryland Air National Guard published in 2000 asserted that the squadron, the 104th Fighter Squadron, was responsible for the incident. Now, the first reports that members of the Maryland Air National Guard were responsible for were published in the Arizona Republic newspaper in July of 1997. Military flares such as these can be seen from hundreds of miles given ideal environmental conditions. Now, most eyewitnesses to the event do not believe this explanation. They don't believe that they're flares, as the lights seem to be in too perfect of a formation to simply be slowly falling flares, especially when scrutinized against the video taken of the event. No smoke trails are seen, and the lights do not appear to be falling, but rather seem to blink on and then float until disappearing. Now, one point of contention amongst skeptics is the lack of video evidence for the first sightings of the supposed craft. Many videos were taken of the lights over Phoenix, but despite all reports of a craft traveling across state lines and over at least 2 major U.S. cities, no video evidence seems to have shown up. Now, Reddit user Natty_Dread wrote on a forum post from the UFO subreddit this interesting little bit of sort of theory and information regarding a supposed videotape. Now, Natty Dread wrote, Phoenix City Councilwoman Frances Barwood heroically conducted an investigation into the UFO sightings and made an appeal to the public to send her information. One man who lived in the city called to say he had a videotape of the object and would bring it to her office. As he was getting ready to leave his home, 2 men arrived at his door and said that they had been sent to retrieve his video. He asked if they were from Frances Barwood's office, and they answered in the affirmative, so he gave them the tape. The tape was subsequently disappeared and never arrived at Barwood's office, and Barwood said nobody had been sent to retrieve the video. Now, there should also be a videotape from security cameras around town, especially at Sky Harbor Airport, so I assume Men in Black were also sent to confiscate it. How is that surveillance state working for you? Now, bear in mind this event occurred during the March 1997 peak viewing sky transit of Comet Hale-Bopp, so thousands of people living in Phoenix with its crystal clear sky were outside observing the comet night after night. Why would the military fly classified aircraft directly over the center of a large city when so many people were out watching the sky? The UFO was far too large to be man-made, far too strange, and it illegally and recklessly flew through the city's airport landing corridor at night without anti-collision navigation lights. Witnesses saw F-15 fighter interceptors being launched from the Luke Air Force Base with afterburners on. That makes a hell of a noise and physically shakes homes during the evening when families are putting kids to bed. Connect the dots. So, according to Natty Dread, we're all missing a lot of information here, and that potentially there was a videotape. I don't really know where they got this information in regards to this supposed videotape that was being kind of asked for by Phoenix City Councilwoman Frances Barwood, but maybe they have some inside information, or maybe they're the person with the videotape. Now, Natty Dread also had an opinion on the triangular-shaped craft associated with large amounts of sightings, writing, triangle and V-shaped UFOs precede man-made stealth technology by decades. Many of these UFOs are several times the size of any aircraft hangar in the world, so where are they kept and serviced? Maybe they're tied down outside on a typhoon-prone island in the South Pacific. Even if we kept them on the backside of the moon, amateur and professional astronomers would see them coming and going. At some point, you have to weigh the probabilities of some segment of the human population having a breakaway civilization, thousands of years more advanced yet living among us unnoticed, or there are other folk living in the universe who know about and visit the planet Earth. So very interesting theories by Reddit user Natty_Dread over there. I'm hoping they're still alive. I'm hoping the government didn't try to take them out or something by sharing so much truth over here. Now, the last little bit of information I want to get into, some of the prominent witnesses of this event. Now, 2 of the more prominent ones who have come forward with their stories have been a Hollywood actor and the former governor of Arizona. Now, this next video I'm going to play you is from an interview conducted with the actor, none other than Kurt Russell, during a promotional interview for Guardians of the Galaxy 2 with the BBC. In the interview, he explains that he was in Arizona flying a plane the night of the Phoenix Light incident. So this is Kurt Russell explaining or sharing his Phoenix Lights story.
To help me, and this may feature, who knows? Because this is an international story. Because of you both being here, I looked into the international files, not covered by our Ministry of Defense, but maybe covered by yours. This took place in Arizona. An unidentified pilot, according to the press cuttings, flying near an airport in Arizona with his son when he spotted 6 lights in the night sky. So he called from the aeroplane to air traffic control to say, I'm seeing these lights here. I wasn't expecting any other planes. There are none supposed to be on my landing path. Can you tell me what's going on? They said there are no other planes. He said, I'm seeing 6 bright lights coming towards me. Mystery unresolved.
Except tail number for that plane was Bonanza 2 Tango Sierra, and I was the pilot. No way. Oliver and I.
Doesn't say that in the briefing.
Oliver and I
should have read to the end.
Oliver and I were flying in. I was flying him to go see his girlfriend, and we were on approach, and I saw 6 lights over the airport in absolute uniform in a V shape, and Oliver said to me, I was just looking at him, and I was coming in. We're maybe a half a mile out, and Oliver said, "Pa, what are those lights?" And I then it kind of like came out of my reverie, and I said, "I don't know what they are." I said, he said, "Are we okay here?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna call him," and I reported it. And they said, "We're not painting anything. We don't show anything." I said, "Well, okay, I'm going to declare it's unidentified, it's flying, and it's 6 objects." We landed. I taxied, dropped him off, took off, went back to L.A. Never said a word. He never said a word. I never thought of it. 2 years later, Goldie is watching a television show when I came home. Yeah. And the show is on UFOs. But as I came home, "Hey, honey, how's it going?" And I'm kind of hearing the TV going, and I stopped and I started watching, and it was on that event. Now, that was the most viewed UFO event. Over 20,000 people saw that. And I'm watching this, and I'm feeling like Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's like, why do I know this? You know, what? And it's not clear to me. And finally, I said. Then they said the pilot reported it. A general aviation pilot reported it on landing. I'd never thought of it since then, and I said, "That was me. That was me." And I said, "Wait a minute. I'll go to my logbooks." So I went to my logbooks, and there was the flight at that time, and I didn't mention anything about the UFO. The fascinating part of that to me is that it just went literally out of my head. And Oliver never mentioned it. And had I not seen that show, I'd have never thought of it again. Amazing. And that, to me, was the weird part. Believe it now, Chris? Yes.
Yes.
I'm convinced. It's unidentified. It's just unidentified. It's flying, and it's an object. It's an object. Yeah.
All right.
Moving towards you at this.
We need to move on.
There you go. That was Kurt Russell, one of my favorite actors, just talking about how he was one of the pilots just flying a plane over Phoenix the night of the Phoenix Lights incident and reported it. And there you go. So he was kind of caught in the middle of that right there. So, you know, what another thing I find interesting about that is the fact that he said he just kind of forgot about it. And I feel like that's a pretty common thing that happens to people, a common effect of seeing UFOs for a lot of people. It kind of just disappears from their memory sometimes. So I don't know. It's looking pretty fishy over here. Now, the second and last person I want to get into in regards to the Phoenix Lights and being a prominent witness is none other than former governor of Arizona, Fife Symington. Now, initially, Fife Symington was very dismissive of the whole event. Now, this is from MUFON. Shortly after the lights, Arizona Governor Fife Symington III held a press conference stating that they found who was responsible. He proceeded to make light of the situation by bringing his aide out on stage dressed as an alien. However, he changed his tune in 2007, claiming to have witnessed the event, dubbing it otherworldly. Now, in an interview with the Daily Courier in Prescott, Arizona, Symington said, "I'm a pilot, and I know just about every machine that flies. It was bigger than anything I've ever seen. It remains a great mystery. Other people saw it, responsible people. I don't know why people would ridicule it." Symington had earlier said, "It was enormous and inexplicable. Who knows where it came from? A lot of people saw it, and I saw it too. It was dramatic, and it couldn't have been flares because it was too symmetrical. It had a geometric outline, a constant shape. Now, Simonton also noted that he requested information from the commander of Luke Air Force Base, the general of the National Guard, and the head of the Arizona Department of Public Safety, but none of the officials he contacted had an answer for what had happened and were also perplexed. Later, he responded to an Air Force explanation that the lights were flares. As a pilot and a former Air Force officer, I can definitively say that this craft did not resemble any man-made object I've ever seen, and it was certainly not high-altitude flares, because flares don't fly in formation. Now, in an episode of the television show UFO Hunters called The Arizona Lights, Simonton said that he contacted the military asking what the lights were. The response was no comment. He pointed out that he was still the governor at the time of that request and not just some ordinary citizen. Now, ultimately, the experiences of the thousands of people who witnessed the event have not been fully explained to most people's satisfaction, and have left many people still wondering what exactly happened the night of March 13th. Now, one user commenting on a UFOfortruth.com article detailing the Phoenix Lights case seems to sum up the feelings for many of the witnesses, not everybody, but many of them. He says, of course the military is going to try to rationalize and lie, just like the government is doing their job. It wasn't a series of flares, nor was it a series of small crafts. It was a secret military experiment that wasn't even on radar, either Skunk Works or some other Lockheed project, possibly weather control or time-traveling experiments. The people will continue to be lied to. Only the enlightened will know the truth. It's a project, like HARP. Believe me, please believe me. I live here in Phoenix. They have underground bases and manipulate people's minds and opinions. It's not aliens. It's the higher authority. They're laughing wild-eyed now. And that is the end of our look of the Phoenix Lights, the 24th anniversary that just passed. It's March 17th, so a handful of days ago, the 24th anniversary occurred, and here we go. And now there's been a handful of other sightings in Phoenix of more Phoenix Lights-esque lights, if you will, but the military have been much quicker than 4 to 5 months to claim that they're flares, and people who have videotaped those ones, it's much different. It's a much different video than the ones that were taken back in 1997 in regards to what the objects look like. Now, I showed you the video earlier in the show, and if you want to check it out online, make your own judgment. What you think, if those are flares, if it's a craft disappearing, kind of illuminating, if they're just flares kind of falling behind the mountain range. Who knows? And unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be any public videos of the first sort of incidents with the craft, so we may never know what actually happened back in March of 1997. Now, I want to thank everyone for tuning into the show tonight. I had such a great time researching this project and researching tonight's topic, because it's such a Arizona thing. It's the Phoenix Lights. It's one of the few things we can lay claim to in regards to the UFO stuff. A lot of UFO events happen out here, but the Phoenix Lights was like a national thing. So I was very excited to talk about it. So I'm very grateful for everyone who tuned in tonight. I'll be back next week, same time, 9 to 10 p.m. on Wednesdays over here on Tarantulas Dream TV. So please, everyone, stay safe out there. COVID is still a thing, but with vaccinations happening, we will be back. We will come back. We will be hanging out hopefully soon. We'll be, sipping champagne out by the boardwalks here in town. We'll be eating chimichangas out of a sack, partying next to each other at the clubs, the whole shebang-a-bang. So again, thank you everyone for tuning in. Please still wear a mask, social distance if you can, and remember, it is a weird, weird world. And take care.
We're not hitchhiking anymore. We're riding.